Scientists have learned a lot about the history and structure of the Earth by studying rocks. The crust is composed of three types of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. Igneous rocks are formed by the cooling and crystallizing of magma. Sedimentary rocks are formed from layers of sediment that are squeezed and cemented together under intense pressure. Metamorphic rocks form when igneous, sedimentary, or other metamorphic rocks are changed by intense heat or pressure deep inside the Earth. Fossils provide scientists with a tangible record of how life evolved on Earth. The types of plants and animals that existed, where they lived, and when they died. Fossils form when layers of sediment cover a dead organism and solidify around it. Fossils can reveal the age of the rocks in which they were found. They can also tell about geographic changes that have taken place over time. In Activity 3, students explore some of the clues that rocks provide about the Earth past. They compare different types of rocks, observe fossils in rocks, and make a model fossil, and infer how rocks provide scientists with clues about the history and the structure of the Earth. This activity will take about 50 minutes and about 20 minutes the next day. The vocabulary introduced in this activity is cast fossil, fossil, glacier, mineral, and mold fossil. For this activity from the kit, you will need for each team of 4 a paper cup, stick of clay, a magnifier, plastic spoon and knife, and a plastic zip bag. For the class, you'll need the plaster of Paris, the sample fossils, sample rocks including granite, gneiss, and sandstone. You will need to provide newsprint, safety goggles, dish detergent, paper towels, and tap water. Invite the children to go outside or to bring in some natural items such as pine cones or seeds, shell, leaves, or needles, pine needles. Make copies of Activity Sheet 3 for each student. To prepare for this activity, set up 4 rock distribution centers. Place granite at one, gneiss at another, and 2 stations of sandstone. Kathy, I would probably have a hard time identifying these rocks, and you know that in every little bag of the rock samples there are 5. So my suggestion is take 4 out, which you'll need, and leave 1 in the bag with the label on it. Then they'll be easy to match by putting them back. Fill each paper cup 3/4 full with dry plaster of Paris. Depending on the abilities of your students, you may wish to mix the plaster of Paris yourself during this activity. Follow general safety instructions on the plaster of Paris package. Scientists have gathered a lot of information about the formation of the Earth from clues provided by rocks such as these. In this activity, students will find out what these clues are and what they tell us about the formation of the Earth. Each group of 4 students will receive a magnifier and 4 rock specimens. What can you tell, Kathy, about these rocks just by observing them?
Well, if you have not worked with the students about how to use a magnifier, a geologist will typically use a magnifier with their eye, up close to their eye, and then they'll bring the rock sample to them. And so as I'm looking at this, I see basically a uniform color in this rock. The grains are pretty obvious in this rock. I can see them without the magnifier.
What color are the grains?
I see black and gray and even some pink in that one. The grains are very small in this one, so the magnifier actually would help with this one to be able to see it. And I also see black and pink and maybe a little gray in this one also. It's very sparkly. When I look at this one, it looks very similar to this one in color and grain, and I think they're a lot alike.
I think that they are. Scientists conduct certain tests on rock samples to reveal the type of rock it is, which is the first clue. Rocks are made from various materials called minerals. Types of rocks are determined by 3 factors: the way the rock was formed, the type of minerals in the rocks, and the amount of minerals in the rocks. What other formation about rocks do you think that scientists can tell?
Well, I think they'll be able to tell how old the rocks are, their age,
the age
and
of the rocks,
when they were formed.
Okay. The age is determined by measuring the amounts of certain minerals in a rock sample. Another clue is by looking for glacial deposits and scratches on large rocks. Kathy, what is a glacier?
A glacier is a large sheet of ice that moves very slowly. And in fact, glaciers actually covered a lot of landmass back in the Ice Age.
Okay. As glaciers advance, then, they pick up various sizes of rocks which become embedded in the ice. As the massive ice sheet moves through the valleys and along the floor, debris scratches the rock surface along the sides and the floor of the valley. What might the scratches tell you about the path of the glacier?
Well, it probably would tell you the direction that the glacier is moving.
Okay. In this part of the activities, the students will need a plastic knife, a stick of clay, reclosable zip bag, sheet of newspaper, and paper towel to create the model. So what I'd like for you to do, Kathy, is let's take that clay and the knife, the serrated knife, and I'd like for you to press the knife into the body of the clay real firmly and go all the way down to the end of the clay. In this model, what does the clay represent?
The clay represents the land or the Earth's crust.
Now, what do you observe in the clay?
Well, I see lines.
Okay.
Running through this.
What could those lines represent in this model?
That represents the glacier's movement and scratching on the Earth's surface.
And the direction that it's moving. Okay. What would the knife represent?
The knife would represent the glacier.
Okay. And the teeth on the knife that are scratching into the clay?
The teeth on the knife represent the rocks that are caught up in the glacier.
That are embedded and frozen in there. When a glacier melts, all the rock debris falls to the ground in piles, and these are called glacial deposits. We need to direct the students to clean off the knives and place the stick of clay in the plastic bag, and then return the materials to the kit. Another clue about the rock's origin is to look for remains or imprints of an organism that might have lived long ago. Rocks containing these are called fossils. Kathy, here are some fossils. Take a look at them. How do they differ?
Well, some of them actually look like the actual object, three-dimensional object.
That looks like something's been filled in inside there, doesn't it?
Definitely. And then this one looks like something's maybe been laid on there and pushed in and printed in there.
Imprinted. A mold fossil is an imprint of the original organism. A cast fossil is a mold that has been filled with minerals and hardened into the rock. One of the things, Kathy, that I'd like to point out is that on the little bag of fossils that the teachers will be getting are numbers that correspond with the rocks. You might want to ask the children to take care that they not take the numbers off, because that is the key to the rocks inside the bag. Okay, Kathy, let's make a fossil just as the students would be doing it. The students are going to be working in groups of 4. Each group will receive a cup with plaster of Paris in it. We want to remind the teachers that safety goggles are really needed during this time, because plaster of Paris has a fine powder in it. They also need something to fossilize. We need newspaper and paper towel and tap water and soap. We're going to be using the soap to coat the item that needs to be fossilized. Petroleum jelly is also a good lubricant to kind of coat. So either petroleum jelly or, as the guide suggests, would be soap, detergent. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to coat the object and coat it, give it a nice thick coat of dish detergent. We suggest this and or petroleum jelly, and you just kind of really got to get it kind of a thick coating. We can't be short on it. Now what we're going to do is you're going to pour the water in here, and I'm going to start, go ahead, just keep pouring until I say stop, because the kids will be doing this, and we're going to, you can see how that fine powder is really coming out of there. All right. Okay, now, one of the things we want to point out is that this is about the consistency of pancake batter. It's kind of a nice creamy consistency. It's a little bit lumpy, but that's okay. All right. Now, once we get it set up like this, then place the item gently on the plaster and press lightly, but do not submerge. Cups will dry overnight. Students will discard paper towels, newspapers, rinse and dry spoons, and return the spoons and magnifiers to the kit. Caution students to not pour any of the plaster of Paris down the sink. Students will retrieve their cups a day or 2 later. Kathy, let's see what we've created here. Peel the paper from around the side of the cup. Here, it's kind of flaky, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's nice to have some paper or something under there.
Yeah, it really holds it. Okay. Looks a little different, doesn't it? Now, let's take our item off, our shell off the top.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah. What do you, describe what you see there, Kathy.
Well, when I look at the back of the shell, I actually see the pattern from the shell printed right into the into the mold.
Okay. Let's review the 4 clues that can be found in rocks. The type of rock, the age of the rock, glacial deposits and scratches, and fossils. What do you think each clue tells scientists about the Earth's past? First, the type and the age of rocks reveal the conditions present when rock formed. Glacial deposits show presence of a glacier, and glacial scratches tell the direction of the glacier's movement. Fossils tell scientists of the organisms that lived that period long ago. Now you'll distribute activity sheet 3 to the students. On this sheet, students examine the drawings of rocks taken from 2 different sites. The students will match the rocks with similar properties. Students are asked to infer what happened that caused the similar rocks to be separated. This question will be used to stimulate their thinking about how similar rocks can be found in different locations. For cleanup, students will probably discard the scraps of paper, but will want to keep their fossils. Guide the students through reading pages 12, 13, and 15 in the Delta Science Reader.